You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. All right, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I've got Brad Hunt here with me, and our episode for you today is, it's a panel discussion from the Western Hunting Summit from this past June. We sat down with a host of like incredible mule deer hunters.
You got Tony Treach, you got yourself, Lampers, Brian Barney, you got Dave Baronio and Mark Livesey. Like, you have a set of guys that all with killers and have so much experience.
Yeah, all with different kind of skill sets, different sort of backgrounds. You know, I feel like an imposter in that group, you know, like
when you're sitting next to guys like Tony Treach and you know, Robbie Dennings there presenting and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like,
these
I'm
guys,
out of a league of my own.
Yeah, I do my best. I've had a great last 5 or 6 years on my learning curve. I get to spend 150 days out there doing this stuff.
Brady Miller.
I've got to travel. So, yeah, I've had some special experiences. But this panel is excellent. But with this crew, we just basically answer the questions from the audience.
Yep.
And get into
That's great discussions too.
Yeah,
you know?
deep. You know, the thing is, if we just present our ideas on mule deer hunting, it works. It's great. But when you have an audience there who's asking you questions, it's really effective because we take for granted some of the things that we know. That the audience, being real new to this, needs us.
Well, and the big advantage too is they can ask a question. And there may be, because there's 7 or 8, 9 guys on the panel, you can get 7, 8, or 9 different opinions or whatever to that same question.
Some of us are opinionated. I think all of us are. That's why we're successful.
Well, and you all have different ways of doing stuff too, you know?
For sure. So it's a great discussion. Before we get into that, we have a big giveaway going on right now, a massive giveaway. We're giving away a PSE bow, a dozen Black Eagle arrows, which are these are sweet. We've got a Leupold rangefinder. We're giving away some Stealthy Hunter products. We got some Peaks products. We're doing the Sissy Sticks trekking poles. We're giving away
headlamp, gators.
So all this stuff, you can be entered to win if you use the code GRITTY over at Mountain Ops. Every purchase gets you entered to win the prize package. And what's more is, right now, if you use the code GRITTY, you get 30% off on anything you order at Mountain Ops, plus you get free shipping. So, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer deal. You get 30% off, you get free shipping, and you get entered to win this big prize package. So we're stoked on that. Use the code GRITTY over at Mountain Ops. Stock up. And speaking of Brady Miller, who was on the panel with Go Hunt, we have been working a lot with Go Hunt. I got my Go Hunt shirt on here. Go Hunt has come out with their new map system, their digital map system. It's a great tool. It has some features that you just don't find in other map systems. As we've said many times, everybody should own multiple map systems. This is an incredible new product where they're coming out with some really
Explorer maps, $50.
$50 to get it's a $50 subscription to get the maps, and it just does some things that other map systems aren't doing. The range finding tool is one of them. The ease of downloading data, the satellite imagery. So check it out. Like I said, everybody needs more than one app. If you've already got a digital app, map app, just add this one to the arsenal. And then Stealthy Hunter. Go check out Stealthy Hunter. This Western Hunting Summit, this podcast, this panel discussion would not be possible without Ryan Lampers and Hillary Lampers doing what they do. If you like what they do and you want to support them, you can always get a rifle, Stealthy Hunter rifle cover or glassing pad. But also, they have their nutritional products. I mentioned this on the last podcast. I'm going to mention it again. 2 of my favorites right now: the CBD gummies, sleep support. This is money right here, and I'm just telling you, I've been taking one of these little gummies each night before I go to bed. They're not melatonin based. They're CBD. Whatever is in it, it says melatonin free right there. Whatever's in it and however it works, we need to have Hillary on the podcast to get some details on that. But it's a clean product and it works. I sleep through the night. It feels great. It's just the right amount of what I need to relax, fall deeply asleep. I don't wake up and have to pee in the middle of the night. And I sleep a good clean 8 hours and get up and I feel really refreshed. And so I'm really loving this by Stealthy Nutrition. And then check out the CBD Intensive Relief Roll-On Gel. Shockingly, this works too. I thought it would be like voodoo magic, but for some reason you roll this on those sore, tight muscles and do a little massage work.
Yeah, joints, whatever.
Yeah, and it really has been helping quite a bit. Of course, you can get their standard CBD products as well.
Yep.
But I love that stuff. So check that out. Use the code Gritty over at Stealthy. And also check out our friend Austin over at Graxaw Game Bags. Here's an example of one of the game bags that we use. Yep. We have been using these game bags for a long time. I think 5 years now.
Yep. I'm on 3.
And these things roll up. Like, I got it in my hand for those that are listening right now, and I'm rolling it up. And they come in.
No joke. 6 of them will come in like
not
this,
even that big.
They'll
be about the size of a pop can.
Yep.
Or less.
Yep.
Just a little pop can thing. They weigh nothing. I mean, this is enough for a whole boned out quarter, and you can see it's just a tiny little ball in the palm of my hand. They weigh nothing. I don't remember the total weight. 6 ounces.
Yeah, I mean they're so light.
They're nothing. They're the lightest out there available. Super strong. Like, you fill this thing up.
Don't punch me in the face.
And you just load it with hundreds of pounds of meat. It's got this long tie out right here, which we love.
This is what impresses me is I know how many times we have tied 100 pounds of meat just with
we
that
use
string.
The cord that's on the actual bag. We wrap it around the branches or whatnot.
Yep.
And then we cinch it up. And this bag keeps the flies out, is durable. We reuse these bags. This bag's been used probably 3 or 4 times. Wife is good. She washes them up, and then they're back in the bags again. Full disclosure, they are not the most puncture resistant. No. So you can't be putting sharp bones in there, and you can't be stabbing them up on a stub on a tree or something like that. But that's easily avoidable, as is attested by what we do with these bags. I mean, they're not that weak, but they are. That's not their strength, and it's a give and take. For us, the lightweight, the tensile strength, the compactness of the bags. They're such a pain in the butt to carry game bags.
I remember like finding a place on my backpack, which is usually under my frame on the Everybody Stalker Road, and it's like I would stuff my game bags there so they're out of the way.
Yeah, like
but
nobody.
Just heavy.
It sucks.
Yep.
So that's where I'm at with these. Check them out, Graxaw game bags, and then Graxaw makes the boot dryers. And they're indispensable. They're a wintertime item, 100% for me, especially if you have full grain leather boots like a Crispy Guide, Nevada, Kenai.
Cold season when you're like the Wild Rocks. I mean,
they're amazing. They're a must-have for every hunt. One guy brings it, 3 guys share it.
Right.
Teepee stove, you're good. And then use the code Gritty over at Initial Ascent Backpacks. I got my pack right here. It's off screen, but I am loving my Initial Ascent pack. Use the code Gritty over there. You'll get a great deal on a new pack, and I think it just carries heavy loads really well. It's my favorite. Brad's using Eberly stock. Don't buy that one. Buy the Initial Ascent. No, everybody's making great packs, but give Initial Ascent a look. Check them out. That's it for today. We're going to hop into the podcast. Enjoy the panel discussion. Let us know what you think. Leave us comments on the YouTube channel. We love that. And like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening on iTunes or whatever device, leave us a review if you like our show. And stay gritty. All right, Joel, briefly, and I mean briefly.
Ooh.
Name, kind of.
Joel Turner, shot IQ, all things mental, shooting, stress.
All right.
Mark Livesey, Treeline Academy, all things finding elk.
Tony Treach, Rockslide. I live like a gypsy for 4 months at a time.
Brian Barney, Eastman's Elevated, bow hunter.
My name is Brady Miller, and I love mule deer, but my real title, I guess, head editorial of Go Hunt. But I love mule deer. Just love them.
Ryan Lampers, husband to the great Doc Hill.
Oh, man.
Kissing up today.
Man, he must be in trouble.
Brian, call Gritty Podcast, Gritty Films, and Hunter.
Dave Baronio, hunting guide, minister, father, friend, a man to be in service to all.
All right. So with that, let's start off with some questions. Anybody got questions? Whoa.
I know this is Mule Deer Summit, but this one's for Joel for elk.
Ooh.
So what do you do, like, you know, in the morning you're seeing them, and then if you, like, let's say you didn't see them that morning, you know, you didn't glass them up. What do you do for calling to find something like midday in the heat, like 2-3 o'clock?
So midday, they're probably going to be bedded down, and so I'm looking for those benches, north-facing slopes and such. And I always, before I go into one of those areas, I always sound check it with lost calf sounds. I mean, when I'm way away from it, so there's no chance of thermals getting into the bedding zone or anything like that, I'll sound check it, send out a calf series, and if I don't get anything from that, then I'll do a breeding scene with tending bugles and glunking. If nothing responds to me at that, they don't exist. I just move on through that area to the next area.
That's a fact.
This one's not necessarily a hunting question, but it came from when we first talked to Dave at the very beginning, and he just said it again about being a service to others. And that question has had me thinking nonstop since we got here. I just want to know, for all of you, what does it mean to be a service to others?
Well, for me personally, that's a great question. I think everyone on the panel and everyone out in the audience has their way of giving back. But kind of one of the things for me, I really got into guiding, and I don't get to hunt much myself. Maybe once a year I will get a tag. Everything that I've learned throughout my history of hunting, I really want to pass on. And it's not so much passing on to kids in the next generation, but I feel that we all have an obligation to give back to what we've experienced and what we want to see continue in the hunting industry. Not just in hunting, but talking to people about relationships and life. And hunting gives us a great platform to speak with people on a very personal level, to be transparent and vulnerable in places that you have to put a lot of effort to get into and can break you down, but then you find out really what you're about. And I believe that just being in service to others is to be able to give back, show you care, show that you want to see them excel and grow. And just like the hunting summit, we're all here to grow. A lot of these gentlemen, and even all of you, have in one way inspired and been in service to me, as hopefully I've been in service to you in some respect to help you grow and learn and become better human beings in life, so that you can pass it on as well. Leading by example.
All right. I'd really want to produce content, in the form of podcast or film, which I've been doing since 2015. I want to produce content that is meaningful to people, that empowers them or inspires them. I always say, like, when I make a film or do a podcast, I want to achieve three things. I want people to be entertained. I want them to be educated. I want to teach them some things that maybe they didn't know before. And the last one is I want to inspire them. I want to get them motivated to go and do the thing. And so if I can hit on two of those, I feel like I produced some content that was worthwhile. If I can hit on three, then it's a home run. And I could sit down and I can podcast, I can do some things, I can film, and I can share some content that people find maybe inspiring. When you do something, I always say this, like, you can't just make a hunting film and have it be awesome if you don't do something awesome as well. You can go out and you can hunt and you can show that, but if you can go out and do something like Brian Barney, go out and with a bow and kill some giant deer, but if you can get that on film and then share it, that's an accomplishment, not just a well-made film, So my goal is educate, inspire, and entertain. So if I can throw the entertainment on there, then the education and inspiration just go automatically. None of us want to learn things in a boring way, and it doesn't really work that well. So if you can add the entertainment in, then And that's how I want to serve. I want to create that stuff. And it's great when I'm here and people come up to me and say, I saw your thing and I decided, even though I'm 45, my life isn't over. I can go out and get in shape and I can go and do this thing you guys are doing. If you guys can do it, I can do it. And same thing with hunting. I never thought about bear hunting, but after I started watching your stuff, I'm like, I got to go bear hunt now. And to me, that's, it provides a lot of meaning in my life with what I do for a living.
Yeah. So I guess when I think about this, I think back to how fortunate I was in my early days. I had a father, number one, a father who also gave me the skills and the freedom to go chase these animals. And he taught me a lot. Great mentor in my life. I had another gentleman, you've probably heard me talk about this, Dallas Blood, one of my great mentors when it comes to elk hunting. And he offered me a ton of time, a ton of knowledge. And, I couldn't be more grateful to both those people, great mentors in my life. And, I was a solo hunter for a long time after that. I kind of used what they fed me, went out, did my thing. I was pretty selfish. Obviously, my wife has reminded me of my selfishness over and over. And I think she finally got it through my head that I was, a little selfish with maybe some knowledge or tips and things that I had learned that had, got me to where I was in finding success. So, fortunately, we now have this platform, working with Brian, using his skills to kind of get education out there. I love answering questions. I hate doing presentations. Obviously, you guys have seen. That's why I bring the big hitters in. These guys are great educators. But I do love talking one-on-one, and I do love, even on social media, Instagram messages, I try to answer them with some meaning, not just, one-word answers. So I've really enjoyed that. I feel like that's giving back in a way. Me and my wife doing these events, trying to give back, thinking about, the folks that helped me get to where I am, and they donated their time. I want to donate mine.
To me, it's like I got into content and writing because I just love to, all the random experience I've had throughout my life to slowly try to give back and help inspire people, educate people on the things I've done. And since I grew up in the Midwest, I grew up in Minnesota, so I started diving into photography and then more writing as a way to share those experiences I've had with family members who might not get a chance to ever come hunt out west, or maybe they'll see a photo and it'll inspire them to, want to get in better shape, want to lead a more adventurous life, and just get out there and try something new and really just break down barriers of hunting a new state, hunting a new species. Like, it can be really daunting, but the more I feel like I can try to, dive in, talk to some people who have a little more experience than I do, or just, go through my experiences to educate them on how actually easy it is to break down a barrier, hunt a new state, try something new. Because once you try it for a new time, you're going to realize that, hey, hunting mule deer is absolutely phenomenal. And it's one of the most addicting things you can do because you're putting your body in these tough situations. You just learn more things and just test your mental ability. And it's just I just want to give back by, keep producing content that just helps people lead, like I said, a more adventurous life.
Yeah. Can I just steal one of these guys' answers?
Yeah.
It's so great. But I'm so fortunate in life that I found this passion and this adventure and this thing that I truly love. And I've found happiness and I found purpose in my life. And so it's always been a dream of mine to be in the outdoor industry. And so through that, I just try to share the knowledge that helps make me successful. I want you guys to find the adventure. And if I can play a small part in your journey of either inspiration or knowledge or know-how or confidence, I just think it carries over to the rest of the things in life. And living here, we have such a great opportunity to build a great lives for ourselves. But so many people are wasting this opportunity, and we get one chance at this life. And so, I think I was put here for adventure and to challenge myself. And I just try to share it with you guys. And hopefully you guys can find this passion and find happiness in life and in happiness in that pursuit.
Yeah, it's tough to follow all those answers. I was a pretty lucky guy. My dad got me in the woods early, and much like Ryan, I've been hunting solo for a long time, and Ryan's also not the only one that Doc Hillary pointed out as might have been a little selfish. So if I can help anybody with any experiences that I've had, and even testing the gear on rock slide, even save you some money there with things that, hey, don't do that, don't buy this, it's not good. I've seen a lot of things, and I love sharing it with you guys, and I get a lot of motivation from you guys, and it's any way I can give back. I guess I'm trying to learn how to be less selfish.
For me, I'm a little bit different than these guys. So I grew up, my dad was like absent. And I have a brother that's 1 year different than me and younger than me. And him and I just grabbed some recurves at a garage sale. Grew up very poor. And we had these ideas of chasing bucks into the corners of meadows, in the corners of fields, and just shooting them out of trees, setting up on limbs and stuff. And we had more deer running around with arrows in them on our property. I mean, and so that's how we got started. I mean, it was a school of hard knocks. And kind of like when I started elk hunting, I was 23 years old. I was super blessed. I really worked hard in college. I got a great job with the boss that hunted. He comes to me one day and I was thinking about Ishmael a lot. I was about 22, 23. Let's go elk hunting. So we went in a minivan. Our first trip was to Colorado in a minivan. We had no idea what we were getting into. And that's how it started. And, I couldn't find people like you that would do it. Well, one, I was blessed with time, like you talked about time. I was blessed with it. So I solo hunted for years and years and years. And I would go and live in Colorado for a month or two at a time. And I actually ended up getting divorced, kind of over it, to be honest. My first wife was not Amy. And so not solely because of hunting, but I just want you guys to learn. I don't really talk about this as much. Probably first time I ever even mentioned this. And so anyway, that's kind of how it happened for me. So I'm just telling you right now, before my 30s, even 35, there is no way I would be telling people how to find elk. No way. I wouldn't tell you a spot. I wouldn't tell you even what state. Like Brian's like, oh, we're in Oregon. This is an Oregon film, and that's kind of the way I was. I mean, I totally avoided the subject. And I got older and I just started spending time hunting with some other people. And I got out here. My wife made me retire and I moved out here. And I'm like, dang it, I got to quit being so selfish. And I got to start doing it. So I started recording some freaking YouTube things. Ryan and they did a podcast at my house, and I met Ryan, and we started talking e-scouting, and he says, man, you should come to the summit. You may not know how to kill any animals, but you know how to find some. And I'm like, okay, good. So that's how it started. And that's how the course was born. Really, I owe it all to Ryan, Hillary, kind of just opening the door a crack for me to kind of do it. And so I'm loving it, every minute of it. So I'm going to give you guys some advice. I've had several guys ask me about this. How do you do it? How do you wait? So I'm going to retire in this far. Joel and I have had a lot of conversations about retiring. Retire 10 years before you think you can. Maybe 15. Guys, McDonald's is paying $24 an hour. We can always go back there when we're 70 and go to work. It'll be fun. McDonald's will be fun at 70, right? Don't wait what's enough? How much do you got to have? That's what my wife she said, Mark, what do you got to have? It's always, well, more than we got. You got a lot. I'm like, not enough. At 70, 65, retiring at 55. Guys, it's too late. We talked about, I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but the entrepreneurship, and Tony was talking about, you got to seek it out, and you just got to expand your capabilities. Working a 9-to-5 job for somebody else is not going to get you there. One lesson I learned the hard way is being an employee is not going to probably, unless it's a rare situation, going to get you what you kind of want to do, if this is kind of the way you want to go. So anyway, I've enjoyed meeting all of you. And like Ryan, I know I act like I don't, but I love the questions. If you can squeeze one in between Ishmael's, I'll be glad to answer them. So thank you all.
So I have been seeking positive impact on people for a long time. And for a long time, I was a cop for 20 years, almost 21 years. And that impact fell upon deaf ears, people that didn't want to help themselves. So, they would have their own little battle for the day, and you'd go fix their own little battle, and then you go away from that, and they're still in their battle, and you're off doing your own thing. But I found more positive impact when I would actually teach cops how to survive, how to win their gunfight, and all those things. But people like you're here, and all the things that I have to say, it has a very positive impact on your life, because we've been seeking this information since the dawn of mankind, right? So I find that in these situations and all the clinics and seminars and online courses and all the stuff that we do, it has a massive positive impact, because you leave events like this with this knowledge of exactly how you're going to do what you're going to do. And that is very powerful stuff. So that's how I give back. And the minefield has been navigated. None of us grew up with these shooting skills. We had to learn from grandpa or dad or mom or whoever you learned it from, but they never told you how to actually do it. So we struggled. Every one of us has struggled throughout our life to find out this information. And some of us, thank goodness, have gotten there. I didn't get there for a long time. I mean, a lifetime of failure in shooting, having this, being a cop, a sniper, all this stuff, that was my determination well. And then having my failures in bow hunting, that was basically practice for work, right? And it was just this perfect storm that we've put together. We've been down the right paths of research, so you don't have to struggle anymore. You folks don't have to have a lifetime of target panic or shot anticipation or why did I miss that one? That doesn't have to happen. And I feel, and I hope that you feel, that's a very powerful thing. So thank you again for being here.
So sometimes I feel like I'm still new to hunting. I've only been for a few years. And sometimes I feel like it's hard to extract out of your guys' minds what I need to, because I don't even know what question to ask. So I'll start this off with Ryan. Ryan, if you were a few years into hunting, what would you ask yourself? Like if you were talking to your future self, like what question would you ask yourself that would jump you ahead?
What would I ask myself? I mean, if I was asking myself, like, how am I going to succeed at this thing that I really want to be successful at? Knowing now what I wish I knew then, I guess I'd be asking myself how to do it, and now I know how to do it. So now I know how to answer that question. But patience is something that I learned a long time ago that has helped me through everything in life, hunting, family, especially hunting. I mean, Brian gets frustrated with my patience levels at time, I think, when we're on the mountain. But if I had to give myself some advice, I guess, as a young hunter just getting into it, I think it would be learn to be much more patient, slow it down, soak up everything you can from others, and gain that experience. Don't expect to go out there and be super successful out of the gates. You got to put in the work.
I never got to the point where I was able to observe patience the way that Ryan has it, because I'd never hunted with someone who had a high degree of patience. So just like Barney was talking about earlier, guys will get themselves down, they'll get into that position. There it is. The animal stands up, the buck stands up. The first available shot they have, arrow's gone, That was kind of mostly everyone I hunted with and most of my life, that you work so hard to get to the moment, and then usually you rush that moment, and then sometimes you make it happen, sometimes you don't. As Brian Barney was describing today, he gets into that moment and it's just started. It's just beginning. It's not the end of the stalk. It's just the beginning. And he talked about being comfortable in bow range for hours of an animal, and then passing on all the shots that were available but marginal, waiting for that shot where he gets that big, target. Instead of one quartering two, it's quartering away. And then you do that, and then all of a sudden you start to see like, okay, well, like Barney said again, if that animal gets up and walks away and he doesn't get that shot, he's willing to let it walk away. That's the price he's willing to pay in that moment. Like, I'm going to let it get up and even walk away from me and perhaps not get a chance at all rather than take the marginal opportunity. But then he also said, but I'm still in the game. I maintain the element of surprise. It doesn't know I'm there. That deer gets up, goes around the corner. You sneak over there. 4 hours later, you have a 15-yard shot, broadside, perfect opportunity because you didn't blow. I had never observed people do that before until I hunted with Ryan. And then I started to go, well, wow, like all this patience for that perfect moment, most of the time leads to tremendous levels of success. Sometimes it doesn't, though. We were hunting with Brady this year. There was a shot that was in Brady's wheelhouse, pretty easy, actually, for Brady, a lot farther than you and I shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And Brady, I think Brady was, you correct me if I'm wrong, but when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So Brady held back a little bit to get that close 200-yard shot. And this beautiful, big, brown boar just decided he didn't want to be there anymore, and he went over the top of the mountain, out of our lives forever. But that's the risk you take when you decide, no, I'm going to wait for that like perfect opportunity. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but I would say 8 out of 10 times, the patience is what gets you the animal overall. And that's what I observed over the years hunting. And I hunted a long time with a lot of different skilled people. And yet, until with Ryan, Ryan's on that other level. Probably Barney is too. I've never hunted with you, Brian. But when Ryan sets up for a shot with a rifle, it's painful. Like, I have the camera on him. I have the camera on the animal, and the animal, the giant buck is on this ridge. There's like cliffs and stones, and I don't see how you can close it. You need to shoot him before he goes over that hill. And Ryan's still like fiddling with his bipod, and he's checking the bullets. And I'm like, get set up already. And then he lays down, and that buck goes over the hill. And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking, dude, if you could just move a little faster. and then, but for Ryan, it's like, I didn't blow it. I was calm. And that something's going to happen. We're still in the game. I'm going to kill that buck. If it's not today, it's tomorrow. And then lo and behold, that buck comes right back over the top, stands there, and he has all day. No rush. Super calm. And then he smokes it. And, I would have been probably rushing and then firing when I didn't need to, and I may have pushed it beyond my limits and made a marginal shot. So that I've just learned through hunting with him. It's funny because I heard Brian Barney up here talking. I'd never heard Brian go into this much detail before. I haven't been in one of those seminars, and I turned to Ryan and I'm like, is there anything you don't align on? Like, you guys are saying the exact same thing, like perfectly in sync, and same philosophy and everything. It was kind of interesting to hear today.
Yeah, and this sounds totally cliche, but there is something I think about, a respect for the animals that you got to consider. I've got a lot of buddies that have stories every single year of hits. They can't find them, shoulder shots. And I don't want to be the guy looking back with a long track record of animals wounded, walking away, not recovering them. And I've talked about, I had a hit on a bull, and this is now over 10 years ago in Idaho, where I made a bad shot, hit him in the shoulder. Now, the arrow just fell out, but it always sticks with me. Like, I should have waited just a couple more seconds, and I would have drilled that bull. And from 11 years ago, I have not had a hit on an animal that I didn't recover with my bow. And so I want to kind of maintain that. And I don't want to have to look back and say, yeah, this animal got away and I made a bad hit on that one. I really want to, be respectful and make sure I make the best shot possible.
Since we're roasting Ryan on this, I got a good story for you guys too. And Ryan, I don't even think he realizes this is a story. So this year elk hunting, I'm hunting solo, and Ryan's solo. He sends me this. I said, hey, what's happening? Oh, I got this. He's in, can I say what state?
No.
Okay, he's in one of these states. It's a great tag. And he says, I got this giant bull. I found the mother bull. So he sends me a phone scope pic. It's a big bull. I said, well, freaking kill the thing. I mean, you're Ryan Lampers. Next day, I get a text, different picture, different spot. Oh, he's a giant. I'm like, Ryan. So days of this, and then he says, I've got to go home. I've got a basketball game. I got to go back, get it, or whatever it was you came back for. Comes back,
My daughter's
leaves the bull, comes back, goes back, starts sending me pictures again, and then ends up killing the bull. There's very few freaking dudes. I would have been running down that freaking hill, slinging arrows immediately. But I think that the patience thing, it just goes, and it was funny to get those, and he doesn't text that much, so I knew he was excited about this bull, or he was just lonely. I don't know what he was. But it was funny because we've been friends for a while, but not all that long, right? So it was really awesome to watch that, and I learned just those couple texts. I learned, dude, you gotta get more patience and get dialed and live. He literally was just living with that bull. Wasn't letting out his sight. Wasn't moving he wasn't hiking back to camp. He was camping whatever slope he could kick out of bed. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, he just lived with that bull until he made a mistake, and it's a freaking giant.
Barney, you said earlier, most guys hunt to the point of failure. That was one of the things that I just didn't know any different, because I didn't realize if I didn't hunt to the point of failure that I could back out and kill him the next day and the next day. And as long as that animal, like this elk, never knows you're there, you're always still in the game. And Brad and I had some tremendous elk hunting where we would get in so tight, but not tight enough to blow these 100 elk out and the bulls we wanted. And we timed it so we were off that mountain before the wind would switch. And every day they were back there, and we had all afternoon to make it happen. And eventually, we got a couple arrows and a couple bulls, and it was great. And I feel like hunting to the point of failure, it's kind of the default often. And if you can stop doing that, and I say to Brad, we just count coup. It's like if you get in there and you're kind of in bow range or on the edge, and there's all these critters there and they never know you're there, and you get back out and you come back each day, that's like a victory. I tell myself, okay, that was a victory. You got in and you got out, and they never knew you were there. And now tomorrow you're waiting for them to make that perfect mistake. Again, you just keep putting yourself in that close position. But again, it's that patience,
Barney, real quick, I got a question for you, actually. Everybody talks about dehydrated meals and freeze-dried meals and stuff. Most guys don't talk about dried, like dry foods on the mountain when water's scarce. What do you usually take, some of the things, and maybe touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm a touch different than most guys. So, I don't buy or eat any of the dehydrated meals anymore. I just find that it doesn't do well with my system. It kind of shocks my system. I don't feel normal. Then I don't feel like finishing a meal. I'm not getting all the calories. I'm packing food up I'm not using. And so I started this journey to start eating the food. Like, I want everything in the mountains to feel like it does at home. I want to eat the same food that I do at home, and then I can just operate at this high level. And so, I do a lot of prep before season. So my menu is different than most guys, as no dehydrated meals. I eat snacks throughout the day. And then I have one good meal at night. And what I do is a lot of prep work. My venison from last year fuels me for the next year. I make a lot of jerky, and I am dialed on my jerky. It's like some of the, I don't want to brag, but like some of the best tasting whole meat jerky. Like this stuff is candy on the mountain. And so I live off a lot of that, and then I'll also cut it into small pieces. And I've got this noodle dish that I make that's General Tso's, and I bring some sauce in with me, and I bring some noodles, and I bring dehydrated peppers, my dehydrated jerky, put it in and rehydrate it. So a dehydrated dehydrated meal, sure, it's my own meal that I created, but I want to eat what I do at home. I have this burrito that I do rice, and I do that jerky in, and I do peppers. And if it's colder, I can bring guac, and I can bring salsa in a little container. And so I bring all this stuff for the same weight as a dehydrated meal, but it's all stuff that I feel like eating in there. So I just really try to test my food throughout the year, and I do have health food as well, like good food that's going to fuel my passion. And I'm also, you'll find a little bit of candy in my pack, a little bit of sugar. Like, it's all fuel that I'm burning, and I don't eat that stuff at home, but in the mountains, my body just craves it. So yeah, you'll find like we'll sit down for breakfast, and you'll pull out bacon, eggs, and pour some water in it. It's going to taste like crap. The bacon's not going to be cooked. It's going to have granules in the bottom or be hard where it didn't get mixed in the water. And I'm going to pull out a cinnamon roll from Montana Wheat Bakery and have that with maybe some string cheese or some salami or some real food. So I just work really hard on my menu to eat the same food that I eat at home or to feel normal on the mountain. And I try to pack about 22 to 2,800 calories a day, about 1.5 pounds per day. That seems to fuel me. And when I'm packing food, I'm a minimalist. So if I'm going for 7 days, I pack for 6. My 7th day, I'm eating all my leftovers. Like, I just have this system dialed for being in the backcountry, fuels me, and I'm able to give it my hardest in the mountains, and my system feels normal.
So I'll ask this question of Ryan. I wish Travis Nowotny was still here because I asked him this question yesterday. You're stalking in on a buck. At what point do you drop your pack and your boots, and then how do you identify where you left it? Travis relayed to me that he did that one time, lost his boots, never found them, walked 3 miles back to the motorcycle and had bloody feet by the time he got there. So, Ryan, how do you approach that? And second part of that, when you leave that pack, what are you taking with you if the stalk turns into a 2-3 hour ordeal?
Yeah, that's a good question, Terry. I have never lost my boots. That's crazy, Bill. I usually mark it. You know, I'm always dropping waypoints on my stuff if I do have to leave it. I try to leave it on a ridge. You know, if I'm going to go down on a buck, you know, it's going to be in an obvious spot. But it's always different, like different type of topography, how far away you leave your backpack. I showed a few guys this weekend, like kind of what I do. Like with the top lid of my stone pack, you know, it just pulls off real easily. You attach 2 buckles, you throw it over your shoulder. It's the lid on the stone pack. And that is just enough space where I can throw my water in there. So I got a little water. I usually have some chapstick, couple snacks. And that's generally it. Now, if the weather's, you know, potentially going to be ugly, I'll throw a rain jacket in there as well. I've had stalks in Nevada where I didn't think the weather was going to be that bad, and then a torrential downpour. Barney, you could probably back me up on this. That weather comes in crazy fast. I mean, it could be 90 degrees, and all of a sudden a giant storm comes in and just throws down rain for an hour. But pretty minimal as far as like what goes in that kit. And yeah, the little lid on the stone pack is perfect size for it. But I have made mistakes of not packing water, and then you're just sitting down on the mountain for 3 hours with, you know, cotton mouth and dry, cracked lips, and you're just like praying for, you know, a sip of water because you're waiting out a buck. But that's about it.
I'll second this. Brad and I do the same thing. We have our top lids ready to go, like food for the day, drink mixes, a little bit of water, like everything's kind of in that top lid, so that when we take off, in reach is there. Like, I don't have to think about it. I just drop the pack, top lid slings around my waist or my shoulders. Like Ryan said, another thing that we'll do is we throw a tarp, like a little Cuban fiber or sill or something over the top, plastic bags. We'll put it in a heavy-duty garbage bag, throw our gear in there and tie it off. You never know in the mountains, like it'll say on the forecast it's sunny, but you know how it is. You'll get this squall come in for an hour and then it'll be sunny again, and your stuff is soaked. And so we'll usually put our stuff, we don't just drop it, like we weather it in and then go. That way we don't get back to soaking wet gear.
You guys, like, listening, can't see me on camera, but
A big tip for me is bringing gum, because I get cottonmouth really bad, especially dry weather. So I will always bring gum that I can.
That's weird.
Even if I don't have water.
I think Lampers does the same thing. I do the same thing for sure.
I'll start a long hike, I throw in gum. Like if I'm sitting there for a long time, I'll throw in gum, especially minimal water.
What's funny about that is, I mentioned Dallas Blood, my old mentor. So he was notorious. He always hunted with a handful of cherries, and he'd keep that little cherry pit in his mouth all day long, and it'd keep him from getting cottonmouth. And that was his tip.
Terry, going back to your thing, a lot of times when I'm hunting Nevada and a lot of the sagebrush looks exactly the same, if I'm going in on a stalk, depending on how long it's going to be, I don't say at 100 yards, this is when I do that. It's all relative to the situation. But I always keep a little bit of red flagging tape, orange, and I just put it on the highest branch right there, because I can put up my binoculars and I can pick that little red speck anywhere if I'm just wandering around looking for my boots. And in some of that deep sage, I've walked right by my boots a few times and looked at my footprints. It's like when I get back to the boots, well, I should have paid a little bit more attention, because you're really focused on the situation. You're focused on the animal, maybe keeping your eyes on it, and just that one little bit makes it a lot easier to go back, especially when you've been down there for so long in the blistering sun. You're like, okay, you just go right back to it. So just a small piece, even if you put it on a paper clip or a little clip right at the top of a branch or something like that, just for a quick, easy.
The other thing too is if there's a big open grassy spot, 10 by 10, I'm sticking it right there, because I've come along and every sage bush looks the same. I'm like right there, and yet I don't see it because I laid it completely flat on the ground. It's earth tones, and it's right under my nose, and I can't see it. So nowadays, Brad and I, we stack our packs up. We have if we have some orange, we put it there, so it's just really conspicuous.
Those stealthy glassing pads have an orange side to them, too. They work pretty well.
Nice plug.
Usually you're taking the glassing pad with you, probably.
Yeah. Ethan, you have a question?
Yes, I do. So you guys have been around a while. Do you guys feel that CWD is changing the landscape as far as mule deer hunting goes? And if so, from a guide's perspective, as a content producer's perspective, as an application strategy website perspective, and then your guys' perspective as well with your years in the field, how do you feel it is, and where do you think it will go in the next couple years as far as hunting?
My home state has put some very stringent rules in place that so I'm gone for a long time. I've got a bunch of animals, a couple freezers full of game. When I go home, everything now has to be deboned. There's no bone marrow. There's no brain matter. It's so I'm carrying a Euro kit, and I'm cleaning every skull before I leave that area. So it adds an extra day onto every hunt. Basically, you're cleaning and processing all that stuff. I don't know what the future is. I'm not even sure that the biologists know what the future is of it. But it's definitely made it more challenging, and it's better safe than sorry, I guess. But I don't. It's one of those things. I think we're just going to have to let the experts do their due diligence and figure out what it's going to be. I'm not a biologist, but I know it's made more work.
That's pretty important for anybody going anywhere, that it's our responsibility, just like making a good, clean, ethical shot, even if the state doesn't have regulations or anything else, that we all do our part to make sure that we're not, transporting game across the state lines that could potentially, even if it's not in a regulation, just do your due diligence, get the brains out, get the bones out, be smart about it all, because that's the longevity of what we, nip it in the bud before it gets someplace else.
I even enjoy, even some of the states that have mandatory testing. If it's not mandatory, I still will just go and get it tested, because as you guys all know, I love data. And so I feel like I'm just giving the state extra data. I have my animal there. I don't have to get tested, but I'll still just get tested, as long as it's not too far out of my way. But I've still driven, 45 minutes to an hour out of my way going home just to get it tested, just to give them more data points.
I don't think we know really. Colorado changed all their dates and really tried to increase success rates on older deer and whatnot. I've seen different states try different things. I think Ranella had a pretty good podcast, a couple of them on CWD. And for those who don't know, that's chronic wasting disease and what that is doing to the deer population. But it's been coming out west from east to west for a long time, and it's here now. I mean, it's been here for a while, and it does kill a lot of deer, but I don't think we really know.
How do you guys stay safe in a mountain storm? What are your tips?
Ryan, go ahead.
What was that?
How do you stay safe in a mountain storm?
Are we talking like a lightning storm type situation?
Just one that you can't get down. Like, you're gonna have to stay up there, ride out the storm. What are your tips to it?
Pray. Ryan chooses because that's where the big deer is, just to ride it out. Like,
yeah. Like, I mean, the shelters we use, we have yet to lose one to a mountain storm, like say wind or anything like that. I think the one thing that worries me when we do pick these spots on these ridges on the top are the lightning storms. Those are no joke. I've told this story before, but I was in Nevada and I had one strike down just 30 yards in front of me as I'm carrying my bow down this ridge. And that spooked the crud out of me. And all I could do is drop the bow and zip down the mountain. And, I think my advice is, and I think Brian would back me up, is if there's lightning bolts thundering all around, it's have a plan on where you're going to get down to. I think that's the best thing that you can do, is just know where you're going to go to get off that top.
Adding to that, you guys, plenty of us have hunted Nevada, sunny day, beautiful, and then, you don't take in the proper gear, and that storm comes in, and some of those Nevada storms can just dump on you. Even on a hot August day, you get wet and you get some wind up there, you can still come down with hypothermia. You can still chill yourself down enough that you can cause trouble. So just because it's a nice sunny day, I'd say get under shelter, even if it's your rain fly for your backpack, that's stuffed in there. I've actually hunkered underneath my rain fly because I wasn't smart enough, and I learned the lesson, so I didn't do it again. Had to be under the rain fly just to stay dry, so I wouldn't get hypothermia. You will get it even on a hot summer day in those high mountain winds.
Yeah, and we do a lot of like camping on ridges, like Brian alluded to. And one thing that we do that may be a little bit different, even when it's not windy, like I send Brian off to go grab like 150-pound boulders, and we pin down like all four corners. He's a CrossFit guy. He can handle that. So we're pretty diligent about dropping heavy rocks on all sides of our TP, and we've never lost one in those high wind situations.
I think it's also like you build your backcountry kit. Your clothing is your protection out there. And so you want to have all the necessary layers to keep you warm, to keep you dry, to keep you safe, where you can survive anything. And same thing with your shelter. You want it to be tested. And just so you guys know, I am petrified of lightning. I have been in some of the gnarliest lightning storms in the high country where it is hitting all around me, where, and I've taken chances. And when I was younger, I would sleep on those ridge lines. Now, I mean, I don't. I camp where I can ride out a storm. If I have to camp on a ridge line or on a top, I have a lightning plan for the middle of the night to grab my rain jacket. And I have spent half the night sitting on my feet with lightning bolts all around me as I'm down in a safe place. So I identify where these safe places are. When I get in there, I'm looking for lulls. I'm looking for timber patches, not the tallest tree, but a group of trees in and through there. And then I just play it safe. I get really good at reading the weather coming in. Which direction does the weather come from? Are the clouds building? Are they building into thunderstorms? Is that going to hit me in the afternoon? I make sure on stalks that I do have my rain jacket with me, that I have enough to ride out these storms in the mountains. And as I read those storms coming in, if it is lightning that I have to avoid, I give a 6-second rule. And so 6 seconds is 30 miles away, moving in my direction. I know the storm's coming at this point. I'm going to get down and be safe. And the first 3 rules of backcountry hunting is safety, safety, and safety. No buck is worth dying for. You have to play it safe. You have to make good decisions. This isn't the world that we live in that's so nerfed soft, where water comes out of the tap, where you have the safety of your shelter to ride out lightning storms. Like, it's raw, it's visceral out there. And so you have to make the correct decisions to be able to live another day and hunt. And danger is real out there. We have bears, we have lightning, we have these big storms, snow, rain. Like, that stuff comes in, and it comes in quick. And a situation can turn dangerous in a matter of minutes, matter of seconds. And so I think it's just building your mountain savvy, your decision-making process, learning along the way, learning from these guys that give advice. I always look up where I'm camping. I'm making sure trees aren't leaning towards me. I'm making sure I can ride in a storm. What's my lightning danger? I'm constantly assessing the situation because I know my life depends on it.
Guys, I'm going to add a couple things here. I think everyone here probably does it, and they don't. This is one of those things that, Ryan and I talk about this a lot for the summits. We take so many things for granted, right? So a couple things. And I know some of this sounds simple, and some of you may already know this, but number one, those widow micro trees, those dead trees, will be the end of you quicker than just about anything. We had one fall in the camp when we were up there. Okay, so pay attention. We love to hunt. I hunt burns, beetle kills. It's those are really dangerous spots. So if you think you'll hear a tree crack and you got time to crawl out and avoid the tree, that ain't happen. So pay attention to where you're putting your tent. Number one. Number two, when it comes to the rain gear and stuff, I've learned that now I carry my rain gear, of course, never without it. Never. No matter what. But now I'm carrying a tarp. I think everybody here carries a tarp. You can ride almost anything out in a tarp. Bear season this year, I spent more time in the tarp than I did the freaking tent. And I even upgraded my tarp. I went ahead and spent more money for a Dyneema tarp, so I don't even know what's in my pack. It weighs like 3 ounces. It's in there. It's the best money you're going to spend. There's almost no situation that you couldn't ride out in a 10x10 tarp. And guys, rain gear, it's not going to save you from being hypothermic. What's going to happen is if you're hiking in rain gear, you're going to be wetter on the inside than the outside. So that's where that tarp comes in. Just weather it out. If you got to hike around the rain, great. Some people are better at it than others. I've found that for me, I'm so hot inside my rain gear, even in cold weather, that I'm starting to get chilled. So I will just stop. I'll put up my tarp. I'll weather it out if it's possible. And gaiters, rain gear, tarp, don't camp under dead trees.
I hunt totally different if we have a stove and a teepee as well. Like, look, I'll wear my gaiters with my pants over the top so that no water that wicks through my pants goes in under my gaiter and into my boot. So my feet are dry from the knees down. I'm really dry, but my pants will get soaked, and I'll just wear a rain jacket on the top with the vents open, and I'll sweat a little bit. But my core stays pretty dry, and my feet are dry. And when we pop into our tent, who cares? I mean, within a few minutes, half hour or so, all of it will be dry. The next day I can start out fresh. But when I don't have that with me, and I realize I could stay wet for days, it's just inconvenient. I'll definitely tuck under a tree and just wait for that to go away, and then come back out and hunt some more. Because I got 3 or 4 days left of hunting. Do I really need to push it and get rained on for 5 hours and then be wet for a number of days, or can I just pull it back a little bit? But it also depends. I'm more likely to get wet in elk season because it just rains more in September, and then there's actually a good chance of killing something in the rain. So, it kind of depends on the animals as well.
Cool. I just pretty much since you guys are all here around the table, I've talked to some of you guys already about this. What's kind of you guys' best advice for mule deer hunting in October? Non-rut, early October to mid-October. What are things you're looking for in the mountain? What are key areas you're looking for, places that you want to be glassing? And pretty much key areas for finding bucks in non-rut October.
Steeper and deeper. I just want to go where people don't want to go. I want to find those isolated areas, those pockets that have that. Like Mark and I both talked about that edge habitat. I'm looking at anything I can see a little bit of edge, but it's near timber, so they have security. The bucks don't want to come out in that open that time of year, so I'm just trying to find the nastiest terrain I can, because that's where the older deer are going to be, and just glass till my eyes hurt. Then once my glass till my eyes hurt, I'm moving angles again, glassing in the shadows again. Like we all talked about, every time those shadows move, that buck's going to get up and move into the shadow. He's not going to be in the sun. Looking for that flicker of an ear in the timber, just glassing that timber the whole entire time, and just relying on maybe e-scouting. If you scout a ton, you know how some of those ridges beyond there lie. Don't be afraid to loop around, glass another angle, glass another basin, glass another, put more miles on, get further in. Just, it's a gamble in October. It ain't easy. We just got to keep knowing every single day you put more effort into it, glass all day, just like it was a rut. I will hunt all day long. No going back to camp because you will find a deer eventually.
I mean, why? Why not just go duck hunting instead? That's the worst dates to go chase mule deer. Man, anything before October 20th, and I'm really wondering whether it's worth my time. But I'm also not a mule deer slayer like these guys are. But what do you think? If you have limited time.
I just don't hunt that time frame. There's definitely tactics. Brady probably has hunted it more than me. I never go before October 20th. October 20th is the date. And you heard Robbie talk about that too. And we had some long conversations. And it's a date I'll never forget because it's my birthday. And that is the day.
No, it's my birthday.
Yeah, it's both our birthdays.
You share it.
But I always feel like on October 20th, the rut has started. That's the day for me. And I never really even schedule anything prior to that.
But if that's all you have,
yeah.
If that's all you have, then, like these guys, that transition area, you see them in the velvet. Once they get rid of that velvet and those big bucks tuck into that thick stuff and they stay there. It's like Brady says, in that edge. So if that's what you have, get after it, but do it in the right places.
I heard Robbie Denning do a podcast years ago at the Western Hunt Expo, or a seminar, and I still go back and listen to it all the time. I think it's on Rock Slide. I think it's one of the third or fourth episode, I think. And he talks about still hunting in October in those dates because they're not up, they're not moving much. You're kind of jumping a giant. And he talks about how to still hunt and that he knows where those bucks are in these timbered areas. And he just describes just walking out there with that gun. And that's kind of a lot of what his strategy has been during that time of year.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about what other people have done. I've never done it.
Well, I know I shared with all of you guys that story, but for the sake of the podcast, a number of the giant deer that I've taken with clients have been during that time, and it's still hunting, timbered aspen pockets that I have seen big bucks on Wallow trail cameras. And I knew they were in there. So I would tell clients, we're going into an area where you're not going to glass anything. You might not see a deer, but if you do see a deer, it's probably going to be a shooter. All his buddies are out glassing big open sage country and seeing hundreds of deer. But if you're going to kill a big buck during that time, still hunting, but huge patience. You walk slow and glass and cover everything. That buck's going to be bedded someplace and he might be watching. You got to find him before he finds you, but it's going to take patience, persistence, and hunting those areas.
I think still hunting's more like I would do it for blacktail on the Oregon coast. And I think it's more like tree stand hunting without the tree. Like that's how slow you're moving. You're literally standing there for minutes at a time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you move 2 feet, and then you stand there for a long time and then you move and it takes you a couple hours to go 100 yards. You're almost more still than you do move. And that's, I think, often the right way to still hunt.
Everything can change in a couple feet.
You guys have heard how much I harp on how I lean on optics all the time. I absolutely hate, though, that I make that a crutch. Like, that is the one thing I lean on, and I don't still hunt. Like, I wish I had that toolkit in my pocket. Sometimes it's harder when you have a friend with you or a camera guy, like, go that far, that many people into the woods. But if you're solo and you can learn how to still hunt like Robbie does, you will kill giant deer. I absolutely hate that I've never been able to do that because I don't want to just rely on one tool in my toolkit. I want to be able to expand that knowledge, learn different parts of it just to make me a better mule deer hunter. It's something I'm going to do eventually because I know I need to do it. Like you said, there's big deer in timber. You get in there.
I don't know, I can't speak to mule deer, but guys, don't forget that one slide. I know Brady and I talk, we're kind of this edge, okay? When you're glassing, so many guys will scan the edge, right? Scan the edge. They don't try to look into the edge. The deer prefer the 50 feet on the inside, exactly equivalent to the 50 feet on the outside. If you're close range glassing, like 200 yards, right? Correct me. You're in a reasonable range. You can see further in the timber than you think you can. But your mind doesn't want to go there because there's so much open. You just want to keep scanning the open. But just peeking into those edges is difficult. You got to slow down and do it. But I found elk hunting, at least. I have picked so many elk up that are just inside. And it's just natural for us to just keep looking for the open spots. How many times there's a little meadow, you just keep going back to it, right? Maybe someday there'll be a bear there. Maybe someday but peer into those edges. And I would guess in October, I don't know, I've never done it. I would guess they prefer that.
They still do.
They may not be way back in there.
No.
So just keep it.
And remember, too, where they're coming from. So just a month before, they were in velvet, and they were in the open because they don't want to be in the thick. So they're also, at that time, not going to be with the does. So the next step is they move into the timber because it's security. They've lost the velvet. They don't have any, there's no apprehension there for that. But they're also still not ready for the does until the end of October. So they're not going to be far. They're going to be in that, as Brian calls it, the secondary living. They're going to be in that next step, and they're not going to be far until they start thinking about, you know what, it's time to work down to where the does are at. They're not going to be far from there.
Yep.
They will not be far from there. And look for, and I like it, if I had to hunt October, which like Ryan, I do not like to. That's what August and September and then November seasons are for. I can find something else to hunt in October. But if you have to, if that's your only choice, I look for spots that aren't incredibly thick. Find yourself a good vantage point. But, Wyoming's a good example where, they don't have the super high alpine like maybe Colorado does, but you have a lot of broken timber. And if you're looking at a wall of aspens or a wall of fir, it's not going to be as productive for you as if you're looking at spots with little open patches and fingers, little ridges, flat saddles. Look for spots where it's not just all completely steep. They dig out a flat bed for a reason. They don't lay on a 30-degree slope. They dig out a flat bed. So if there's natural saddles, they're going to use them. And still hunting is the best. And also when you're still hunting, I grew up in Michigan. There's not many, there's a lot of different ways to hunt that thick stuff, but use your binoculars as much or more when you're working through that super thick stuff as you are when you're sitting on a high point and you can see 5 miles. I can't tell you how many deer I've busted because, you walk 2 steps and you just look with your eyes and you don't pick them up. And I think I told a group we were shooting with on the first day about the biggest whitetail that I've ever screwed up on. I almost stumbled right into him because I didn't pick up my binoculars. But when I did, and I looked into that grass with my naked eyes, I couldn't see him. You pick up your binoculars and adjust that focus knob as you're looking at 30, 40, 50 yards in front of you, and all of a sudden you're going to see the silhouette of a rack or a butt or an ear that you would have never seen with your naked eye.
Yeah, when you're still hunting, the trick is you got to see them before they see you. Yeah. If you're not moving that slow and you're not doing what Tony's doing with the glass and just looking right out in front, when I was hunting blacktails in October, we would go. I'd wait for it to rain. Like blacktail will get up and move around a little bit in the rain, but I think you have to think about these deer when they hit the timber. They move at night. Blacktail move at night mostly. So if you want to kill a big buck in October, you kind of have to go right into where he's at and catch him. He's only up for a minute. The rut's so much more fun. But I think if you can see them before they see you, a little noise cover is good. And they're moving a lot at night. You're probably not going to see that buck. Robbie talks about tracking, which blew my mind. I remember being a kid and following tracks in the mud and stuff, but he literally will find a giant track in the trees and then he'll follow the track. That's a lost art.
Called closed loop still hunting?
Yeah, something like
that.
I like it.
Yeah, I hunt bucks in October. All those deer are still in that unit. They're still being bucks. They're still being deer. There's not a lot of pressure if there is a rut season like in Montana. Not a lot of guys hunt mule deer during October. So, I find I use the same tactics. Like Brady was saying, I glass from different angles. But for me, it's covering country and it's finding the basin that the bucks like. And I have great hunting during that season because I learn these spots where mule deer go down to this secondary living. I have the mountains to myself and kill some good bucks during that season. So it can definitely be done.
So I'm a new hunter. What tips do you have for hunting desert mule deer, which are a little different?
Mr. Arizona over here.
You know,
I love it. I think it's way better than any other mule deer.
Yeah, desert mule deer. So it's different in the desert. So a lot of the high country, a lot of the other places that I hunt, they're not around the water sources as much. They can get enough moisture from their food content to be able to survive, and that all changes when you go to extreme desert. They need that water, and so I am looking more for tracks. It's really helped my tracking skills. That I will go walk water holes any place there's water. I'm going to look for muley tracks. I look for big buck tracks. I look for a population of deer. Like I've said, like during my talk, these deer aren't spread out throughout country. They're in pockets, and you have to find where those pockets are. And tracks allows me in the middle of the day, I'll walk sandy washes, I'll walk water. I'm trying to look and locate these deer. And once I can find those deer, the desert's all about master vantage points and big glass. Like, you got to be able to look a long ways. The deer densities are really low. There's not a lot of mule deer there. You're not going to see a lot of bucks, but I try to find these vantage points that show off miles of country. I've got my binos tripoded up. I'm using high power binoculars as well as my 10-bys to scan close. I'm using my scope, and I'm getting to the right places at the right time. But I'd say desert deer, I want to find a population of them, and then I want to find the vantage points that show off that population, and then I want to plot a stock or plot a play. And the desert isn't easy, but they build some good bucks down there.
I would like to hear, Ryan, you show up, season is starting, your strategy, day one, like, what's your strategy for this next 2 weeks?
During, like, what are we talking? For
rut?
Are we talking desert? Show up next 2 weeks on a desert hunt, like our Arizona trips. Similar to Brian, we're trying to find those big vantage points. I'm trying to keep my eyeballs from looking up in the mountains where all those coups are. I've not done a ton of, Arizona hunts. We've spent time here the last few years chasing coups. Mule deer are distracting because you got these big giant rack bucks down in the flats, and then you got these little teeny tiny whitetail up on the mountain. And it seems like it should be in reverse, but that's just how it is down there. So grabbing those vantage points, glassing your eyeballs off. I've noticed, it's obviously you got to be there first crack. You're getting that early morning glassing, but we're still picking up bucks midday, at the oddest times, throughout the day. So just being real diligent about that. But it is just a glassing show down there for us. And it's pretty easy to find those big glassing points that just show off the biggest areas of country to look at. So where we found success, where we've seen the bucks are from those perches. And, man, it's just being really diligent, glassing all day long.
And then that's finding them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kill one?
Just stalking and
like
kill
that
it.
big giant buck you killed. How do you do that?
Yeah. I don't know. How did I kill that? That was, I feel like I got a little bit lucky when I found that buck because we were hunting coups, and it was kind of end of rut. The bucks were just kind of winding down. They were starting to feed a little bit, but they were still with the does. And that buck just happened to make a big mistake where he put himself. I had to sit, I got myself in as tight as I could. I had to sit for quite a while. I had to wait it out before he put himself in a better position. He had bedded. He got up, he moved, and I was able to kind of keep some timbers between me and him, got in, and I got my shot. But I don't know, down there, you're just going by braille. Like you're kind of going on the fly, whatever, position they put themselves in. You kind of have to go with it. I was much more aggressive on that hunt, chasing that mule deer, than you can be with those darn little coos deer that are all over the mountain. That's for sure. Because those things are just super turned on.
I think one of the big mistakes people make in Arizona type desert hunts is they hunt to failure too often. And that's so silent. It's the desert. It can be dead silent. And you got to know, like, as much as you think you're a ninja or whatever, you're just not. It's impossible to sneak up on this big buck with 20 does under these conditions. And when I was observing Ryan, he was checking the weather and he was waiting for like Thursday. Like that's the day that we could stalk. So if you can find an animal, keep it in your sights for 2 or 3 days, pattern it, see where it goes, and then you wait for that weather day, wind kicks up. Now if you can get them where they're at, now you have an opportunity to actually sneak in under. I think wind and cover noise, jets, airplanes, like if you're near an army facility or military, I seriously, I wait till 2:00 because they're going to fly over for about 30 minutes, and that's when I'm going to close that 50 yards. I'll use people's vehicles as they drive by. Any noise, anything I can leverage to give me some cover noise, I'm going to use. I had like Brad drive by on the side-by-side a couple times just to cover my last 10 yards.
I'll say as far as glassing, guys, you got to remember, when we talked about the view shed, we didn't get into this very much, but I found that I've only been in Arizona, I think 3 different times late season. And you look at a knob and you think you're going to climb up there and you're going to glass, but that mesquite and those sage, they can get pretty high. So when you're doing this when you're trying to find your ideal glassing spots for maybe when you go down there, look for those more bald or not. I mean, you can be deceived when you get there because the resolution on these apps you're not able to zoom in to see vegetation height as well as you are at high resolution Google Earth. So look for rocky outcroppings, because sometimes it's slow. You think it's low, but when you get there and you're trying to glass, sometimes it's hard to see out. You guys find that? I kept getting up on these knobs and the stuff was just high enough that you just couldn't glass that as much as I thought you could. So even though you think it's treeless, some of that staging, some of those, especially that kind of mesquite, whatever they have down there, can get really difficult to see. So just keep that in mind.
How often? I have questions for some of you guys. Like, how often do you belly crawl? Are you on your hands and knees, or are you on your butt more? Crab walking. Like, what's your preferred? Like, how do you guys move without making noise and close that distance? Like, what do you do? What's your style?
The first thing is to use the terrain as much as you can to avoid crawling or having to do that. I mean, if there's a wash or something, heck, sometimes you can just walk right up. Just got to use it and make sure the wind's right.
Why would you do that?
So they can't see you, can't smell you, can't hear you. And that's all you got to think about. Those 3 things, just keep it simple. Don't overthink it. I mean, sometimes you could, the wind's coming quartering this way, he's over there, just to say it's relatively flat looking, and you just want to sneak your way through. Well, what if there's a wash that works around, the side, and you come in quartering wind? I mean, keep it simple. They're always, keep in mind too, they're always going to be watching, almost always, downwind. So if you can use a quartering wind, you're better. But I'm a forward crawler if I have to. Don't do much with the crab, but the crab works good too because you can set your bow or your weapon on your chest or your belly, and it keeps it a lot cleaner than moving your bow forward, moving to it, moving your bow forward, moving to it. But I'd use the terrain as much as I can before I ever have to do that. There's sometimes you can just walk right up to them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you don't have to crawl, try not to. I mean, we hunt areas like Arizona and say eastern Montana, for example. If you have to crawl, there's a good chance you're going to come across some prickly pears at the worst possible time, and those suckers, they get you, and then you're picking thorns out for
months,
quite a while. So, like Tony, if you don't have to, don't, but be very diligent about where you're putting your hands down, knees, on the ground. Preferably hunting the high country. It's more of I'd say way more opportunities to just slowly inch your way down. Like Tony said again, bow in your lap and just, come from above them.
Mm-hmm.
If at all possible.
These guys are spot on. You a really skilled spot and stalk hunter will use that undulation, that topography to the nth degree. So when do you crawl, or when do you crouch, or when do you belly crawl? When the conditions call for it. When you don't have anything left and that's your only option, you have to keep the element of surprise. And it's wild, their eyesight. They pick up movement so well. So if you're in the open, if you're exposed, they catch you moving. And so you've got to use that undulation, use that topography to hide your approach. So whatever you have to do, if you can see them, they can see you. So you need to keep your eyes down below the ridgeline, below the topography, and you need to learn to use this undulation to the best of your ability to get you as close as you can. And so when the conditions call for it, all of a sudden my eyes can see them. I have to crawl. I'll begin to crawl. But I'm like these guys. I stay on on my feet. I do not crawl very much. I crawl when I have to, or when I need to close that last 10 yards, that last 20 yards. But for the most part, I'm staying on my feet. I'm crouching down. I'm keeping out of sight, and I'm doing like whatever that stock calls for to not get busted and not get caught. That's what I'm going to use to get in close.
So if I have to crawl, I like to be in a position. If it's on a flat, I don't like to be going backwards, because then I have to bring a knee back under me to get up on my knee to draw back should that deer get out of its bed ahead of time. If I have to go downhill, I like to keep one leg underneath me so that I can quickly get up on a knee. If I have to go towards it on flat ground, I like to be on my hands and knees like this, carrying my bow with my bow arm, so that if I have to, I'm right there on my knees in the ready. If I'm going down, I like to draw one leg back, so I've got that knee ready to just pop up and come up, should it get out of its bed before I even get there. So I don't like to be caught in a position where, I can't get up without moving. I like that, even if it's just a quick second that gets me into position with that one knee underneath me. I do shoot for my butt, but a lot of times you got to get up over, and you can't do it that way.
I think one of the things that skipped over a lot, we'll get to it, is how do you walk? How do you walk quietly? So when you are walking and you're trying to not make any noise, it's basically closed loop walking, right? You're moving your foot slow enough. Think about it, though. You're moving your foot slow enough that you can stop it. Because
Here we go.
When you feel that twig, if you've committed too much weight to that, you can't stop it, right? So there's a way to put your foot down on the back corner, and then you roll the side of your foot down, and then you roll to the inside. You're laying that down. It's however you can walk best. It might be a tiptoe and a certain step that you need to take. However you can gain the feedback that you need to gain so that you can stop your foot anywhere within it. That's how you walk without making any noise. And that's why we're putting socks on our feet instead of our boots, so that we can gain that feedback. So practice walking through sticks and such and figure out which way can I place my feet on the ground. It might be that outside edge and roll it to the middle. It may be tiptoe and then roll it to the back. How can I step and evaluate the ground the best? And that's how you really walk silently through things.
I think of it as a series of one-legged squats. Because once you commit, like once you go over, you're going to make noise. But if you kind of do this and you just set your foot down, you're on one leg, it just sets down. You can feel if you're going to break something, if you're going to do something. And all the weight is here. I haven't shifted. My foot's down, and I'm like, yep, that's good. Then I shift the weight. I don't go to the next foot until I'm sure I like where it's sitting and everything's quiet. Then I shift the weight. And Ryan told me years ago, if you do the stock properly, you're going to be wasted, exhausted, sore, tired, because it's really, really hard to do it right. Physically, it's like a series of yoga poses over and over again.
It's taxing.
Yeah, the slower you move, I mean, you literally get wiped out. Like if you're moving sloth-like, I mean, Brian, those stocks that don't work out at the end after you've been every muscle has been tensed up to try to keep the noise down, to try to get in super tight, you are absolutely wiped out, like you just ran a marathon.
Exhausted.
So my question kind of follows the stalk here. You're on a stalk and a buck sees you, but like you're still, and so then he looks away. How long do you wait after that to keep pursuing on your stalk? Watching his ears, or what are you watching to know that you're safe, to kind of, that he's not still on alert and just going to snap right back when you go to move again?
I give them some time. Patience kills the buck. They remember those noises, and you can kind of tell when they're on alert. And so if he picked up some movement and caught something and is looking in my direction and then goes back to being a deer, I'll even give him 10, 15 minutes. I just want him to feel normal. I want him to forget that danger he heard above there. I really want his brain to reset. So, I mean, I'm going to sit there 10, 15, 20 minutes until he really gets calm and starts acting like a deer again.
Yeah, I've seen them catch you, kind of like look for a while, but when they look back, that next time when they hear something, if they don't reset, man, they snap their head so much faster, and then they're like, "Yep, I confirmed it. I gotcha."
And you watch their body language. He might get up and be looking straight away, and you think, "Oh, he doesn't see me," but his ears are pinned straight back, on the
Dude,
back of his head, and he's like,
watch the
I
ears.
know you're there. I'm not looking at you, but I know I see you through the back of my head.
I was on this hunt in Alberta once, and I had set up the camera, and I was doing the stalk. I was by myself, and I put it on this deer. I have this. It's a cool video. I've never shared it, but this buck is just old knobby stuff. He's totally regressed. He's old buck, and I'm inside 40 yards on this hill, just sneaking around on him, and he sees something, and he stands up and looks, And for about 45 minutes, I have this whole thing on video. We do this thing where he's just waiting. He looks around like that, and he jerks his head back, and he does this thing, and he's doing it over and over. And he does this, turn his head and then whips it back. And he is trying to catch me doing something. And he'd get longer and longer pauses between these things to lure me in more and more and more. Then he lays down, and I'm thinking, you're not done yet. You've done this too many times. And I wanted to draw then but I just waited, and he laid down, and then he jerks his whole body up and looks at me. And we do this for enough times to finally he's like, okay. I'm just seeing things. And he lays down, and he starts chewing his cud. Now he's in that state where he's totally relaxed. Then I go to draw my bow. I knew he was going to see it. And he's like, wait, he stands up wait a minute. I knew there was something there. I knew it. And then I missed. But you know what? It was a cool hunt.
So I have a really bad tendency to do this, but I know that there's a specific amount of being consistent. How attached to a specific animal will you get? You find one, you love it, maybe it's funky, and you're like, I need that one. But then at what point are you like, okay, I got to stop this? Maybe you're not hunting it to the point of all end, but you just are like, that's the one, I want it. Do you hunt it until season ends? Do you allow yourself other bucks? Where do you go with that?
Let me start off with this. So this isn't mule deer, but this applies to all species with this man.
Right, like Big Red,
Yeah, so this is my first hunt with Brian, and so there's how it went. I haven't told this that much either. So these guys have been friends. We give each other a lot of crap, and I guess they were a little bored, and they're like, let's just invite Livesey on a hunt, right? And then I know they're sitting around. They're like, we want to let's invite Livesey. Well, he's 56, and then Ryan says, well, he's got llamas, and then Brian says, yeah, but he's 56. So anyway, they invited me on this hunt. And I know they thought, this is going to be a train wreck. So we show up the trailhead, and we're starting to hike, and Ryan starts giving me the inventory of the bears that I can and can't shoot. So we haven't ever been on a hunt together yet. We've been friends, but we haven't hunted. And so Ryan says, okay, so when we get back here, red lightning is off the list. I don't chocolate 2.0. I don't even 2.0.
Chocolate Thunder 2.0.
He's off the list. So this bear's off the list, and I'm like, so I, you know me by now. I just couldn't stop talking about my opportunities at red lighting, and so they go up to where they think this goes on for the entire.
He escaped us. He escaped us the year before.
Yeah, that's right. They escaped the year before, so they need to redeem. That's the whole reason we're going way back. So we get back there, and they are going to spike camp up, and I'm going to have to stay down and babysit the llamas in Grist Country. And so I'm down at the camp. They're up, and I'm texting them, man, I sure hope Red Lightning doesn't show up down here because he might be down here in the flats. There's bears everywhere down here. And, but anyway, so Ryan kind of read us the riot act on what's off limits and what's not. And I'm sure Brian will back me up on some of this.
Red Lightning, that was the only one. He was very off limits. We put a lot of miles to go back in and try to relocate that one because if you guys saw the film, obviously, how close we got 30 yards. Red came storming in, ran right past us, and we didn't even see him till later. But yeah,
I think I haven't killed everything under the sun. I don't have. So for me, it's like any mature animal is on the list. For me, that's an achievement. People some folks on this panel, they've done that over and over again. For them, it's that specific animal that they have watched, they know is of a certain age, a certain size, it has these characteristics, and for them, shooting an animal that's a little bit younger or maybe not as developed just isn't worth it. I'm on a bear hunt just with Brady and Ryan here, and we were 16 days. Ryan and I, Brady, you were there 10. We stayed another 6. Ryan had a great bear that, in my opinion, should have been shot, but he wasn't the King Kong Ryan wanted, and so he didn't shoot, and you didn't take a bear on that trip. And you said to me, look, if it's not the bear I want, I'd rather just not take one at all. I know in this case, I'd just be shooting one to shoot one. Now, from my position, I wouldn't be shooting one just to shoot one. That would be a great bear, But if I think it's all about the maturity of the hunter and your goals and your personal where you're at. But I would say that Ryan is obsessed with a deer or a bear or an animal, and then going back to get that one. The elk was a perfect, you go home and then you come back on the same season, but even year over year, I'm sure you are like.
It's pretty much your question describes exactly why I hunt and how I hunt. I mean, I love being obsessed with one. And I mean, I've literally drawn or tried to focus my efforts to get a tag for one animal because I saw it on another hunt. And then that next year spent 28 days straight in the desert trying to find him before I finally threw in the towel and moved on to another great animal. But literally sometimes when I find I'm passing up giants because I found one that I just fell in love with.
Yeah, that's not me either. I have a hard time letting them go by.
Well, it's all about your goals, and it's all about the challenge that you want to set forth for yourself. If you're happy with just a mature animal, then if that's the case, you might show effort towards that animal. But if you find another mature one, a lot of times, if I draw a tag where I know there's the potential to kill a giant, I'm okay killing a giant or going home with my tag. And you have to be okay with going home with your tag, but that's how you kill the big ones. And so if I see an animal that my heart gets set on that's on another level, I will dedicate my entire hunt, every free day I have, to hunt that animal, and it doesn't matter. If that one disappears, then I don't kill one. I spend the rest of the hunt looking for that animal. And so I will get attached when there is the possibility to kill something like that, and it's the challenge of it. It's putting such a high degree of difficulty on yourself chasing one animal that you're going to be elated when you harvest. And so, there's other hunts where I'm an opportunity hunter, and it's like any good mature buck I'm going to be happy with. They're all tough with a bow and arrow to get close to. And there's other hunts where I know the potential for a giant lays there, or I've seen a giant. And if that's the case, I'm okay going home with my tag or killing that buck.
And you'll know it when you see him. The second you see a buck or an elk, if you don't instantly have that, like, it has to happen. I love that animal. If there's any doubts, don't do it.
Yeah. I would say, I think I learned the most in pursuit of one animal year over year over year. Like, I know he's there, so I start using game cameras, I start watching him, I start hunting him, and each year I try and he slips through my fingers. I've learned more on those hunts by far about animal behavior, animals in general, than I did when I just went out and was just looking for something and then shooting it. So there is something special, I think, about targeting one animal in both what you learn, but then when you kill it, I also have faced the biggest sense of loss, but also success at the same time. It's like this animal I've been obsessed with for 3 years, and I can think of all the names, Lefty, you got these different names, Big Red, Red Lightning, where you kind of get this deer or this animal in your head and you start trying to get him over and over and over every year. When it happens, I think there's a sense of loss, like that animal's gone now, that chase is over, but also a sense of accomplishment. It's a weird, they're weird emotions to experience at the same time, but they're there. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
That wraps it up.
I'm ready to wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been awesome.
Yeah, this was really good, guys. Really good questions too.
Yep. So, anything else you want to add, Ryan? You want to say one last word before we close this thing down?
No,
thank you.
Yeah. Again, thank you to all these guys up here. Obviously, all the attendees to this thing, but I really appreciate these guys donating their time, their experience. You know, they've put years and years and years into gaining the experiences that they have, and they're willing to share all this information with anybody and everyone who asks. So, big thanks to everybody up on this panel.
Thank you, Ryan.